Well, the question now is, what will Prime Minister Netanyahu do with MK Gideon Saar's request? And here to speak with us about the political situation is JNS Jerusalem Bureau Chief Alex Tryman. Alex, thanks for being with us today, and every day you're with us here at ILTV. What do you think of Saar's move to join the war cabinet, split from the National Unity Alliance? Is Gantzs, the former chief of staff of the army himself, really that dovish?
Well, first of all, Saar did not join the war cabinet. He's requested to join the war cabinet. That's a move that's being blocked by Benny Gantz. But Saar's leaving the alliance with Gantz is a bit of a political earthquake, and it sends a very strong signal to the Israeli public that Benny Gantz is much more hawkish than he would like to position himself, or he wants the voters of Israel to think that he is. Saar saying that he has significant differences with Benny Gantz on the way the war is being handled, and that if he was in the war cabinet, that Israel would be taking much tougher stances, being much more aggressive against Hamas than Gantz or Eisenkot or even probably the Americans would like.
Now, do you think this change in political posturing to align himself more on the right after repeated lack of success in elections, less than he would like to see, or is this truly about the policy and management of the war?
Well, I think it's both. Israel is in a major existential crisis, which is this war, and Israel needs a decisive victory for many reasons, including its diplomatic standing and also domestically in terms of setting the future for Israel as a secure future. And so political differences are secondary to whether or not Israel wins the war at this moment. But of course, all politicians are looking for what might be the day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And previously, Saar, as the number 2 in the Likud, had seen himself as a natural successor. He thought that perhaps he could have defeated Netanyahu by changing ranks and moving together with Gantz. Now, as Gantz continues to be polling as the possible successor, Saar is making a move and potentially shifting back towards the right, towards the Likud, seeing himself as the one that might be able to take over if the country moves, as it is expected, even further to the right in a future election.
Now, what is the likelihood that we're going to see Prime Minister Netanyahu accept this request and add Saar to the war cabinet?
Well, we saw Gantz last week go to Washington, D.C. To have meetings in the White House with Kamala Harris, and then went to the U.K. where he met with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. That trip happened without the approval of the Prime Minister. In fact, it happened with the explicit disapproval of the Prime Minister, essentially an act that Netanyahu would consider to be completely insubordinate. But Netanyahu didn't have any options and wasn't able to discipline Gantz, because if he disciplined Gantz and Gantz left the war cabinet and the government, Netanyahu will be left with a narrow right-wing government. Now Netanyahu has options, and I think that this holds Gantz in check. It keeps Gantz closer to Netanyahu, because if Gantz acts in a way that would be considered insubordinate in the future, Netanyahu can simply fire him from the war cabinet, kick him out of his government, and instead turn to Saar and to bring Saar's 4 seats into the coalition and create a broad right-wing government instead of a narrow right-wing government.
Now, Itamar Ben-Gvir has already stated that he thinks he should be in the war cabinet. Will Gideon Saar's move or potential move create more problems within an already fragile coalition? And what do you think Netanyahu should do with Ben-Gvir in this circumstance?
Well, I don't think Ben-Gvir is going to get into the war cabinet. The international community already has their sights and their criticism set on Ben-Gvir. If Netanyahu would bring Ben-Gvir into the war cabinet, I think that would set off a firestorm of international diplomacy that Netanyahu really doesn't want. That said, if Saar would replace Gantz and Eisenkot in the war cabinet, that would already shift the makeup of the war cabinet further to the right, and that would be a war cabinet that would probably be closer in line to what Ben-Gvir would want. So certainly a lot of political posturing. I think Netanyahu wants to try to hold things as they are, maintain the status quo, but he certainly has a lot more options. He's seen his primary challenger, Benny Gantz, weakened, and in a way it very much does strengthen the position of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, we're out of time, but thank you, as always, Alex, for your insights.
Thank you so much.